Valeria Diaz Granada is a young art entrepreneur who founded an art catalyst called rossogranada in 2022. Rossogranada is supported by Swizz, the Swiss agency for innovation. But what does that mean exactly, and why would an innovation office support an art project? Welcome to Swizz Art Biz. I'm your host, Tanja König, and today I'm speaking with the founder and CEO of rossogranada, Valeria Diaz Granada. So hi, Valeria.
Hi, Tanja. Thank you for the invitation.
So good that you took your time. Thank you for coming. You're originally from Colombia, but you studied in Paris. So tell me a little bit how you came into the art world. What made you interested in art?
So many things. But I would say that I have quite a particular background. I was born in Colombia and I received a French education there. So I was doing a lycée français. And after that, I moved to Paris for university. I did philosophy and sociology at the Sorbonne, and then marketing and communication, and then some art history course at the École du Louvre. And actually, I knew I've always loved art, and but I was quite scared in the beginning to be like, I don't know, how can I enter this world? Which way exactly? What really I want to do? And then I started a master's in political science.
Ah, so did I. Not a master, but a bachelor. But a very nice subject. Okay, and then what happened?
And then actually I was, all my friends and like were artists or movie directors or writers or photographers somehow, and I was always with them doing projects or helping them to, do an exhibition or do a movie, a documentary, things like this. So it was kind of organic somehow. And then I was like, okay, maybe the political side, this side is not gonna be for me. And then I started to work with artists to do kind of small exhibitions, small projects, and then slowly I think I started to enter into this like ecosystem somehow. And then I got a job offer and I moved to Japan, and I lived there for a couple of years in Tokyo, where I was working for a private collection, and this was a fantastic experience. And then, but the collection was mainly based of modern artists. And after a couple of years, I was like, okay, this is of course fascinating and super interesting, but I really want to work with living artists now, to do projects with artists who are dealing with the issues of today and things that I'm sensitive to, no? So,
No, it's okay.
So I would say that is it's a curious, let's say, background, because it mixes a lot of cultures and a lot of places geographically as well. But I think that everything is related to a very big curiosity of understanding the world and understanding different visions of living and existing, maybe.
And you say you wanted to work with living artists. Why that?
Because I wanted to do projects with them.
So actually working with the artist.
Working with the artist, yes, together with the artist. And this is actually something that we do at rossogranada, and is what I enjoy the most. Because even if I had this philosophical background, when I arrived to university, I had a lot of questions. But somehow very disconnected from reality, because all of these concepts and philosophers and yes, ways of seeing the world were somehow not tangible. And art for me was, let's say, like the answer to connect with these kind of philosophical questions in a more deeper and real way. I also love the human exchange that I can have with them. I think this is extremely important and nourishing for me as a person and as a professional. So I followed what I loved.
Amazing. So then I think in Japan, you already kind of had this idea of working with the living artists and then kind of this idea for rossogranada emerged. And I heard somewhere in a webinar that you said you didn't want it to be a gallery So why not a gallery, and why the form that you have at rossogranada, which we'll talk about a bit later, what it entails?
So actually the idea was that I think the gallery model is extremely competitive. And to have a place as a young organization is extremely difficult in all senses. So I didn't thought it was like a way, and if I didn't want to really to put this whole energy into, you know, this kind of processes, admission processes to art fairs, and like kind of this model, I really wanted to work with artists and to be extremely free. And to be free to do projects in different countries, to be free to do projects with different artists, and not to stick to a specific program or roster of artists. And I also wanted to work with galleries somehow, to collaborate with them. So that's how it started, I would say, this idea.
So I mentioned it was found in 2022, but I think there was like 2 years of working on the idea on rossogranada, and you call it a young art catalyzer. You also operate an innovative art advisory, subsidize exhibitions, research, and do art initiatives, non-profit as well. So can you explain a little bit how that all works for someone who has no clue? I mean, what exactly is it?
So it's an organization that is focused in supporting artists and cultural projects. So, for instance, we launched rossogranada supporting Precious Okoyomon at the Okayama Art Summit in Japan. And this was a very interesting project because it was the first time Precious was doing an outdoor monumental sculpture. So what we really like is to support also artists in projects where they are like kind of challenging themselves, or like changing medium, or trying something new. This is not necessarily the commercial way, you know, because these works are, of course, maybe more difficult to produce, bigger, more challenging somehow. But that's what I really like, to support the artist in a moment where they can challenge their practice and their career somehow. So that's what we do mainly, supporting the artist, and how we do it is with the art advisory. So we run an art advisory that's mainly based in primary and secondary market. And the funds, instead of like keeping them in the company, we reinvest them in living artists, in projects. So the idea actually was trying to create a model that was sustainable and that allows us to have an impact in the art industry, but also in society at large, because we really wanted to add the philanthropic part, let's say, to our projects. But of course we are not, it's a field of expertise, and we are not experts in philanthropy. So what we did was to, even if we're not experts, we can still contribute. So I think it's the gesture also that matters. And the idea is that for all the projects that we do, the artist chooses a charity. And there is a percentage of the budget that is allocated to a charity of their choice. So the idea is to also show that within the art industry, you can actually have or generate a positive impact in society. So this is what we've been doing with rossogranada, and it's a hybrid model.
What do you mean by hybrid model?
Because it mixes kind of traditional models of like art dealing, proper art dealing, and philanthropic visions, let's say, that don't really combine in that way by supporting the artist and by producing new artwork. So I think,
But it's a very young company, and you're already working with very well-established artists. So how do you even get to that connection? It's probably you and your team already have these connections. You work in Japan. Maybe that's the connection to Precious. Or how do I need to imagine that they're like on board?
The artist, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it's, this is this is like the magic, I would say, of connections or of like encounters, no? And I think that if you approach an artist with a project that is interesting and that is has a certain content that they're interested in, it's
but still, I mean, it's not like you have a long history and you can be like, yeah, well, we already did this, but they're still on board. So
yeah, I mean, this, I think the answer is that needs to come from the artist, you know, because we're just doing our job and putting the best energy in all the projects that we do, and a lot of commitment. And we really like to accompany them in the whole process, no? And to work together in the project, yeah.
It's also interesting what you said about the sustainable aspect. So you kind of, if you're trading in a primary and secondary market, then you're using these funds also to then fund other projects. So that's the sustainability aspect, right? That the money goes back into the arts or art production and display. Or what did you mean by a sustainable model?
Yes, I mean, that's one part, let's say, in the economical part or view of it. But for example, what is interesting is that one of the supports that we received from Swizz, one of the angles was young startups that can have a positive impact in society. And here we're trying to reach the Swiss sustainable goals. So how can a young company in the art industry contribute to those goals or bring something, try to achieve them? So this is what we're doing with philanthropy, and by collaborating also with charities that are addressing issues or proposing answers to these problems. So sustainability has, like, let's say, two sides. And yeah.
Okay, so one is the business model and the other one is also addressing the SDGs. So let's talk about, so Swizz supporting rossogranada, which was surprising for me to hear that an art initiative is being supported by an innovation agency by the government. So how did that happen? What was the aspect that they were like, yeah, I want to support that project?
I think actually what interested them, that was the fact that there were no startups or Swiss young startups like working in the cultural sector, addressing innovation outside technology, because in the tech sector you have a lot, but outside, in the more traditional way, there is almost none, which for me was also very surprising, because Switzerland is, I mean, has the biggest art fair in the world, the biggest concentration of museums. I mean, so many powerful, let's say, institutions, that I was very, curious to see that in the younger scene, or let's say in entrepreneurship, there was a lack for this, or at least in this sector.
And what was the innovative part in rossogranada that the Swizz was interested about?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it was a way of creating a business that is inclusive, that is sustainable, and that can have this positive impact, no? And at the same time, working with artists and this cultural side. Because sometimes I think that culture is addressed, I mean, it arrives at the end of the equation for some, not politics, but for some actions, or even for some companies or projects. And here what we're trying to show is that actually it can be your major action, and that it can have an impact that will be beneficial for society at large.
And what exactly does that entail, the support by Swizz? I think your startup, can I call it a startup then? Yeah. In that case, was also in an accelerator, right? That was one part of the support.
Correct. So we were accompanied by Startup Campus. So this is a program who offered us coaching, and they really helped us to let's say, tailored more the business model to address it more to the Swiss sustainable goals. And it was extremely helpful, and they really gave us access to a fantastic network of professionals, investors. And for us, it was like a cross corner, because when you start, you have to do everything yourself, and you have to wear so many hats that this support also makes you win a lot of time as well.
And you also got some seed funding for your startup quite in the beginning. Was that also through connections you made through InnoSwiss?
InnoSwiss did not participate in our seed grounds. It was a private investor. And yes, this happened at the beginning when we launched the company.
Talking about the art patronage and the support for your project, does that come with any strings attached? Let's say maybe from the government, the Swiss government supporting that? What do they expect? And maybe from the private investor that invested into rossogranada?
I wouldn't say there are strings attached. I would say that there is a common vision. For example, from the support that we've received from InnoSwiss and Startup Campus, it was more towards the same goals, I would say. But there is no, let's say, strings attached or obligations related to the program or the selection of the artist. And same goes with private investors. We really, really want to keep the organization independent, and all the selection of the artists and the projects that we do remain completely free, and there is no
so it's not like the government is going to come and be like, okay, you this criteria, and they're also not expecting after a few years to see any return.
No, not really. It's really like an accelerator, really like trying to push you towards to achieve the best you can, no? And they accompany you, but of course this is, at the end of the day, is our responsibility, no? Where do we want to go, and how, and with whom? And of course, for us, what is extremely important is to keep the artistic vision in the best way possible and as free as possible.
But okay, that's the government side, and then I'm just imagining if I would now invest into a project, I would have a vision what I want it to be. So if you say a shared vision together with your investors, you look at it and then you also have to find a compromise.
Yes, of course, but I think at the end of the day, it's more the general objective than a specific project, because at the end of the day, it's like an attitude, no? It's like a way of seeing things or of living things, no? So it's I would say it's more like a common vision, a shared vision towards your implication with artists and with culture at large. And patronage, I think it's should be like this, no? It shouldn't really be tailored to a specific artist or to a specific project. I think if you open it up a bit more, actually you're able to do more and to help and support bigger audiences, bigger communities, and and to maybe bring more messages, put more messages out there.
And investing, I mean, in the name, it also says you also expect a return. Usually, sometimes you invest into something because you want it to grow, or so. What are the expectations?
So now this is something that we are exploring with this project that we're planning in 2025, which will be a platform that will give access to some projects. And of course, if you're an investor and you want to support one exhibition or a project, you will have some, let's say, things back, if you want to call it that way.
Do you believe that the future of arts, the support, the patronage should be in the hands of governments or any other better way?
I definitely think it should be a hybrid model, and that of course governments are necessary to develop the cultural sector and arts at large. But of course, without the help of private actors, it won't be possible. So I think it needs to be synergistic and it needs to be collaborative in order to make things happen in a profitable way for everyone.
So kind of the government also making sure that the ecosystem is there, maybe, and stuff like that. Now, you also mentioned a bit the tech aspect that I know a little bit. And I also heard that rossogranada wants to implement a little bit more tech as well, something that was not planned in the beginning. Can you tell us what exactly you're planning when it comes to tech?
And so this is actually interesting because it's something that comes out of our support by InnoSwiss and Startup Campus. And we were, the business model was quite, hybrid, but mainly traditional in terms of art dealing. And then after the accelerator program, they really made us think outside the box, and the idea was to push us towards innovation, and how could we bring technology to kind of a model that is still very traditional. So with rossogranada, we are preparing very exciting projects where we will bring technology to the more traditional, let's say, market. We're very excited about that because we want it to be way more democratic, and we want to give access as well to art to the majority of people. So
there's something in the making.
There's something in the making, yes.
And when will that? Is there a timeline?
Probably 2025.
Okay.
Hopefully, yes.
Very soon, very soon. Now, we're speaking to you as the CEO and founder, but of course you also have some people helping you out as a team. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about the team who works with you?
So we are a very small team, but very efficient. There is Pietro, who is a partner and one of the supporters of rossogranada at the beginning. We always talk about the program and ideas, about the strategy and the artists that we will support. There is also Santi Scularicchi, who is our senior director. She's more focused in art market and patronage and partnerships. And we're located in different cities, so that's also very, very nice because we can have a coverage of several things that are happening in Europe and in different moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have many projects, if you go on your website, all around the world. Recently during Art Basel, also here in Basel, where you unveiled a sculpture by Leonora Carrington, the dancer, during Art Basel. So how do you balance that, having all these global exhibitions or art initiatives or projects with the local tastes and the local traditions?
I would say that, one of the things that is really, in the DNA of rossogranada is a collaborative spirit. So all of our projects are in collaboration, the majority of them. And of course, when we work in different countries or in different cities, we work with a local agent or a local collaborator that actually can activate the local audiences way faster than us, because this is for us a challenge, but at the same time something that we push, because also the ideas, the beginning, when we create the projects, we of course take in consideration the context and where they will be exhibited and how can we address the project to the local community. Yes.
And how do you choose where you're gonna? Is it your own? Is it you that think, oh, it would be nice to have a project there, or how does that happen?
Actually, we follow the artist at the end of the day, mainly. And that's the beauty of it, because we travel where the artist makes us travel.
Let's get back to, working with so many well-established artists. You already mentioned Precious Okoyomo, Yomo, Louise Bourgeois, and we also talked about Leonora Carrington, who you also exclusively represent in Europe and in the UK, right?
Correct.
How did that happen? Maybe this representation in particular?
Well, Leonora Carrington is a fantastic artist. Me personally, I've always been fascinated by her work. And actually, I know the family, and I was doing a research project with a curator about Leonora Carrington, and this is also a project that we will publish soon. It will be a beautiful publication. And then once we were doing this project, I saw that there was a huge part of her work that has never been seen in Europe, and has actually, I don't know, unseen, not known. And for me, this was completely crazy, because she is so relevant today, despite of market trends or things like this. The essence of her art is so relevant also for contemporary artists, and we decided to take her on board and to represent the Leonora Carrington Consejo exclusively in Switzerland, Europe, and the UK. And then this year it's the 100 years anniversary of Surrealism, so we've dedicated the whole year to Leonora and to a series of exhibitions and projects that are celebrating her oeuvre.
With the other artists, how do you work with institutions like maybe the galleries that they're representing? How do you need to picture that?
The majority of time we work directly with the artist. And then especially what we support is institutional projects the majority of time. So therefore, via the artist, we speak with the institution. And then if the artist has a gallery, we discuss with the gallery as well. The idea is that rossogranada is perceived as a collaborator and, let's say,
and not a competitor.
And not a competitor, exactly. Because sometimes artists, you need to have someone who can maybe bring that little extra mile, or that little étincelle or element that can make the project exist. And
but have galleries or institutions already pushed back because they were like, oh no, we actually do that? Or
no, on the contrary, because the idea is really to make the projects happen and to make the artworks exist. So on the contrary, they are extremely happy and grateful that we can actually help to develop that.
How did people react in the beginning when you told them about your idea, maybe in the art world of rossogranada?
I think people were not really understanding well, because the model is so new. And I think they were trying to see how it works and how do we do it. And I think for us also at the beginning it was like not an experiment, but you need to try some things, to fail others, to understand where does it make sense to be and how and at what time. And it was a learning curve also for us.
What did you learn? Where did you fail and you were like, okay, this we need to improve?
Technical part, this is not really my cup of tea. And now I am more, I take more time, in advance to organize these things. But yeah, I think it's a learning curve, and people were really, I think, expecting and trying to see what is it all about, or how do we work, etc. And I think what I really like is that the projects, show actually what we do, and if we are able to create the projects and to make them happen, and if the artist is happy, I think our job is done correctly.
Do you think it's also an advantage or maybe disadvantage that people don't really know exactly what you're doing? Maybe towards the artist, if they don't grasp it, do you need to explain? Or
I mean, I think as a new initiative, is always there's a lot of curiosity, no? So we're always happy to explain, and then I think people slowly are getting to understand what we do. We're still a very young organization. We're small, but very engaged, with what we do. So I think at the end of the day, people will perceive that or understand that, and the projects will speak about themselves. And actually, what we really wanted to show is that there are different ways of working with artists that can actually be open and transparent and maybe more democratic sometimes, and to open up a bit the this like art world that is sometimes very restricted and very hermetic.
What do you mean exactly by making more democratic? How are you doing it?
So
is it democratic towards the public or towards the artists, or?
I would say both. And this is what we're preparing to launch in 2025. So I cannot really talk a lot about that.
So that's a teaser.
But it's a platform that will allow this to be more open and to give more access to artists.
Why do you think that maybe a few people, or sometimes also young people, feel like they cannot really enter the art world because it's a closed world, it's just for some people? Why do you think that is? Because you even in the beginning said you were afraid of entering the art world. You kind of wanted to, but you didn't know exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think that sometimes I go with friends that are not in the art world to a gallery, they still are a bit, like distant or not really comfortable. This, I don't know. I think it's a pity, because one needs to break those imaginary perceptions. Art is a wonderful and extremely rich environment where you can only just your imagination, your knowledge, your work can only grow. Or so I don't know why these preconceptions.
I feel sometimes when I tell people, they're like, "Oh, I don't understand art." They feel like they don't have the knowledge to know about art.
It's true. This is also, I hear it a lot, very often, especially with young collectors, for example. They are interested in art, but they don't really know where to start. And it's like, I don't have the knowledge. I didn't do art history courses or a PhD or whatever. And I always tell them, like, you don't need to understand it. I think you need to feel it. And if you happen to did it, the job is done.
What makes a good artwork for you? Like, what kind of feeling? What does it need to do?
It's always very difficult to define art and what would be a good artwork or not, because it's so relative and so subjective, let's say. But I really like a definition by Freud. And he was saying that actually a good artwork is when your subconscious can encounter a message or an answer within a painting, when there is a connection or an invisible line that happens, like this glitch makes a good artwork. And I think that's a good definition, because anyone can adapt it to themselves.
So when you're working with your artists, how do you select them? Is it your own taste that you feel like, okay, I like them, or how does that come together? I mean, some artists, Leonora, you said you know the family and all that, but with others?
I would say it's a mix, inevitably, because of course it deals with the preoccupations and the questions that internally you're interested in. But I would say there's also a line of artists that, I mean, I was always thinking, like, how can we contribute to art history today as a young practitioners in the art world or in the art industry? What are the artists or the artistic projects that will be relevant tomorrow, or the artists that can contribute to the young generation? And for instance, what we're doing with Leonora is really, really fascinating because she's so present for a big generation of young artists that really, really were like, yes, I mean, the majority of, not the majority, but were extremely inspired by her. So she's a historical figure, but at the same time, contemporary voice. So I think that's something that really interests me. So when can you touch history, but at the same time being present? And we try to work also with artists who are addressing issues of topics that are, that have a relevance today, whether if it's nature or...
Can you give a specific example, like maybe one or two?
I mean, for example, the project that we did with Monira Al-Kadiri at the Kunsthaus Bregenz last year, it was her biggest solo exhibition, institutional show. And we supported a project that was a massive installation called the Gastromancer, which was an artwork relating to nature and especially this natural catastrophe that is happening because of oil extraction in the Arabian countries. There was a species of a mollusk that was disappearing because they discovered that these like oil boats had on the bottom a paint that was a type of painting that was very toxic, and that has this toxicity was was of course entering to the water, and it was changing, altering, let's say, the gender of this mollusk. So it was transforming the sex of the mollusk, and then they were not able to reproduce anymore. So it created like to extinguish the species. And what Monira did was actually to recreate kind of these two big shells in a monumental scale with a voice installation and a voice recording of a transgender who were actually talking about what it means to change gender and what it does or what you feel and things like this. So artists like that, who are talking about what's happening today in a poetical way, but at the same time very strong and direct. I think it's important.
Let's talk a little bit about the art market, because recently we've been talking about the recession also in the luxury goods sector at art fairs. Some smaller and mid-sized galleries still say it's harder to sell at the moment. Is that something that you also feel, because you still also trade with art? Is it tangible to you? If so, how?
I mean, of course, the art market is something that we follow very close because it's a part of our activities. Yes, with colleagues and other collaborators, we've discussed about this recession, but I would think that for us, what is interesting is that we have, as we have a lot of activities, we can navigate the art market in a more flexible way. So yes, I think there is a specific time, a specific moment, and I really hope that the market will recover very soon.
Mm-hmm. But when you say in a specific way that you can decide we're doing less of this, more of this.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we can reduce our operations based on a specific conjuncture. So that flexibility, I think, allows us to, kind of swim better.
Was it something that you thought about ahead of time, or something
yes.
that you... Okay, yeah, really?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So you were like, how can I make a business model that is sustainable also and through all these highs and lows and shifts.
Yeah, exactly. And it was extremely important because, of course, we're aiming long term, and that needs to have a certain stability despite the crisis.
Then maybe let's make a quick look ahead. I mean, there's a few things coming in 2025. Hopefully, as you said, democratizing the art world a little bit. But what other plans do you have for the near future? I mean, Art Basel Tokyo is around the corner. Any plans there, maybe similar to what you did in Basel this year?
We have an exciting program, autumn program. And for example, we have 3 exhibitions opening in September. We are participating at Frieze London, where we will be showing Leonora Carrington in the UK. Then we have an exhibition in Vienna, and we have another exhibition opening in Paris. And then during Paris Plus, Art Basel Paris, we are preparing a beautiful exhibition, but this time with more historical artists related to Edward Munch and Francisco de Goya.
And these exhibitions will be where?
We will send the announcement very soon.
Okay. So that's how can people know? Check on Instagram, or
you can follow us at rossogranada on Instagram, or subscribe to our newsletter on our website.
We're very curious to hear and see your future projects. Thank you very much for taking us into the world of rossogranada, also explaining us this setup that is quite innovative, I would say. So thank you very much for that. And also thank you very much to you for listening or watching Swizz Art Biz. You'll find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and make sure to follow us. You can also watch us on YouTube, follow us there, and follow us on Instagram. And of course, rate the podcast, talk about it. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.